So, Moon Rider here, and I wanted to talk about this. Actually, it was somebody else mentioning this that made me realize I've had it for a fairly long time, and I haven't talked about it since it was more or less new. So, it's one thing to do a review or first impressions or talk about something after you've had it for like a month. I guess the real question would be, how does it fare after like a year of use or more? And so let me talk about that. Let me talk about not only the sword itself, but how well it's held up, especially given the price point. This is the Musashi hand-honed katana, and it's a $50-some sword. You heard that right. This is basically one of the most inexpensive full-size, full-length, functional swords you can get of this or any type. And, it's held up pretty good, considering. Right? So starting with the scabbard or saya, it's intact, which is kind of a surprise. It's made out of a very lightweight wood, but everything is still there. There's some nicks and scratches in the finish, that's about it. The end cap is there, this part's still firmly attached. The wrapping hasn't even come off. I'm not entirely sure of the name for that. I'm more of a European sword guy, so some of these terminologies may elude me. This metal cap here is still nice and solidly attached. Some people say these come off on the entry-level Musashis. Mine has not. You'll notice the saya still holds the sword. I'm sure if you gave it a good shake it would come out, but you'll notice it's not coming out now. To get it to come out, you really have to give it a bit of a push with your thumb. Taking it out, let's take a look at the sword itself. The blade is not exactly high carbon steel. I think it's like 1045 or something. And it is through hardened rather than traditionally differentially clay hardened. So it's probably a little more durable than it would be otherwise. But it's still not spring tempered like a European sword. So if you bend this, it would probably stay bent. It's worth noting that it is not bent. It's straight. And that's despite flubbing innumerable number of cuts, as you'd expect from a noob. This was my first sharp sword, after all, of any type. And not only has it stayed true in terms of not bent, it's been easy to keep sharp. The blade itself also sustained a bit of edge damage. It came in contact with the metal runner for the garage door when I was chopping bottles in the garage. Took a nick out of the edge near the point, but you'll notice there's no visible damage there, and the reason for that is that I was able to clean it up pretty good. And more to the point, it didn't bend. So this blade is held up very good, very solidly, despite flipping cuts and mistakes you'd expect from a noob. The handle was also solid. It's not only solid in terms of itself, the Ito wrapping is still there, the hasn't moved, hasn't shifted, the manuki are still in place, the pegs are still solidly affixed. Excuse me. The only real thing about this sword that hasn't held up as well as the rest of the sword itself is there's a little bit of play in the tsuba, in the guard. But generally speaking, the sword is as solid as it was in terms of function when it was purchased. And considering it's been used fairly regularly for a year or even a little more, that's saying a lot. So, if you're on the fence about one of these and you say, I don't know if it would hold up, if for whatever reason you need a budget sword, obviously a more expensive sword would probably be even more durable. But if you need a budget sword and you're looking at one of these and you're saying, I don't know how well it's going to last, this has lasted pretty good, right? And I'm going to be honest, I do think katanas are cool. I do like them. I don't know a great deal about them. I'm more into European swords, long swords, and sabers and things like that. But I wanted a sharp sword, and for some reason you can get sharp katanas and functional katanas a lot cheaper than you can get functional swords of other types. I'm still waiting for the price equivalent longsword. So if anybody knows where I can get a $50 or $60, usable, functional longsword, let me know, because I haven't found any. Anyway, so they did a great job offering this at this price point. And not only that, not only can you buy a functional sword at this price point, the sword will remain functional. Again, it's been a year or more, and this is as solid as the day it was made. Again, a little bit of play in the Suba, but doesn't impede function. And if it does get to be annoying, well, the cool thing about the design of a katana is you can knock these pegs out and take it apart. So that could be fixed. Anyway, that's the Musashi hand-honed katana, and it's held up excellently. Like I said, I've had this for quite a while, and I've been very pleased with how well it's held up. So, for the price, I'm not sure you can beat this. Lone Rider out.